Greetings from an undisclosed location far north of North Dakota. I'm Typhon Blue, and this video blog is titled Patriarchy, Theory 1.0, and the Apexual. You can see it right up there. Before I begin, I'll define my terms. The first term is male-bodied. Male-bodied individuals have a male body, obviously, but don't necessarily have a male identity. An obvious example of a male-bodied individual who does not have a male identity is a male-to-female transgender woman. She does not identify with her male body, nor does she identify with other male-bodied individuals. She identifies as female. She may have relationships with other male-bodied individuals, but she does not derive a sense of her personal identity from those relationships. The second term is Patriarchy 1.0. I've created this term to distinguish the current mainstream version of patriarchy theory with the updated patriarchy theory, Patriarchy 2.0, that I have developed to better reflect the observable phenomena within our society. Patriarchy 1.0 is the feminist proposition that male-bodied individuals benefit from the preponderance of male-bodied individuals occupying high-status positions in our society. Stated another way, because high-status positions are primarily occupied by the male-bodied as a group benefit. The third term is apexual. This is a portmanteau of apex and sexual, coined by me, and refers to a male-bodied individual who derives its primary identity from its position within a status hierarchy rather than a positive relationship with other male-bodied individuals. Now that I've defined my terms, on with the vlogging. The apexual identifies not with the similarities it shares with other male-bodied individuals, but in how distinct from other male-bodied individuals it can make itself. The primary drive of the apexual to develop uniqueness compels it to move up the status hierarchy. At each step, the apexual feels itself akin to fewer and fewer male-bodied individuals until, at the pinnacle, it shares nothing in common with any other male-bodied individual. The ultimate goal is to share nothing in common with any other male-bodied individual. In fact, without this drive to uniqueness, this drive for apexuals to differentiate themselves from the male body, the hierarchy would not exist or function. In order for the hierarchy to exist, there must be a constant upward pressure, and this drive for uniqueness, to differentiate yourself from other male-bodied individuals, is what creates the hierarchy in the first place. In every case, upward movement within the status hierarchy requires the apexual to sacrifice and subjugate the male-bodied and distance itself from them through that sacrifice. And thus, the first thing sacrificed by the apexual to the hierarchy is any possibility of sharing a positive primary identity with other male-bodied individuals, including the apexual's own male self. So the apexual promptly disavows any potential male identity it could have in favor of identifying solely with the hierarchy. The apexual sees all male-bodied individuals below itself in the hierarchy as pawns to sacrifice in its attempt to rise within the hierarchy. And while it identifies with the status of male-bodied individuals above it, the male-bodied individuals inhabiting those positions of greater status are merely objects to be removed. Placeholders, if you will. In that sense, the apexual shares no identity with other male-bodied individuals, but a desire to see them as tools to its own advancement in the hierarchy. And those male-bodied individuals who either don't have power within the hierarchy or are useless to assist other male-bodied within the hierarchy, including those excommunicated apexuals who were once powerful, once useful, and have lost their power and their usefulness, they are treated as pariahs, untouchables, by apexuals, by the hierarchy, and often by the male-bodied in exactly the same position. So central is the hierarchy to the apexual identity, an apexual at the bottom of the hierarchy, who has borne the brunt of the hierarchy's demanded subjugation its entire life, will readily offer the ultimate sacrifice in support of the hierarchy that has subjugated it. In song or in heaven, the martyred apexual sees the final realization of its apexual yearnings. It has sacrificed everything it could to support the hierarchy, even its own male-bodied blood, and in so doing becomes one with the hierarchy in its last moments, at least in its own mind. The apexual is nothing without the hierarchy, and the hierarchy can only exist if the apexual is willing to sacrifice anything for it. To summarize, the apexual identity is defined as a male-bodied individual deriving its positive primary identity from its differentiation from other male-bodied individuals. This desire for uniqueness compels an apexual up the status hierarchy, and in the process, the successful apexuals learn to sacrifice other male-bodied individuals, including themselves, for the status hierarchy. Now that I've explained the nature of apexuality, I'm going to explain its relationship to Patriarchy Theory 1.0. Patriarchy Theory 1.0 is the proposition that male-bodied as a group are benefited by most positions of power being held by other male-bodied. Stated again, Patriarchy Theory 1.0 is the proposition that the male-bodied as a group are benefited by most positions of power being held by apexuals. Are you starting to see the problem with this theory? Why would male-bodied individuals as a group be benefited by positions of power being held by apexuals? Again, apexuals do not share a primary positive identity with the male-bodied. They don't even share a primary positive identity with each other. Their primary positive identity is with the status hierarchy itself, and all the necessary actions and motivations required to climb it, all of which involve differentiating themselves as much as they possibly can from other male-bodied individuals and being ready and willing to sacrifice themselves and other male-bodied individuals. In light of that, can you actually trust apexuals have the best interests of the male-bodied at heart, even if they are male-bodied themselves? No. No. Now one might counter, if apexuals don't benefit the male-bodied, then why are apexuals invariably male-bodied? The answer is simple. For the same reason that male horses are the ones who are gelded. Because it's damn hard to geld a mare. Likewise, it's damn hard to make a woman give up her gender identity in favor of sacrificing herself and other women in a status hierarchy. And since a status hierarchy necessitates both individuals to be sacrificed and individuals willing to do that sacrifice, women find themselves squarely outside of it. They also usually find themselves squarely outside of the sacrificing, too. A male-bodied individual is easily separated from his identity as male, just like a male horse is easily separated from his balls. This leaves him vulnerable to being gang-pressed into a hierarchy by his own desire to earn back a socially positive identity. This despite the fact that these hierarchies don't exist to benefit the male body, they exist to maintain themselves, and have painted history red with the blood of the male-bodied. Further, the concept of the apexual explains research into the in-group bias of men and women that found that women markedly prefer other women than men do other men. In its intro, the study explains how women have been marginalized from hierarchies. But in light of apexual theory, it may be that women aren't willing to sacrifice themselves on other women, both of which are fundamental building blocks of the hierarchy. Without sacrifice, there is no hierarchy. And without the drive to uniqueness, there is no sacrifice. Perhaps women's absence from hierarchies result from the fact that women don't feel the need to be in a hierarchy, and all the demands of sacrificing that entails in order to have a positive identity. Not easy to geld a woman. Or perhaps the causal arrow is reversed, and women have a greater in-group bias than men precisely because they don't engage in an apexual lifestyle that necessitates aggressive action towards other women. Because they don't have to fight tooth and nail with other women, they like them better. Women do, however, have an active hand in creating apexuals from the male body, and that active hand is the metaphorical gelding snips, otherwise known as shame. Snip, 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 snip. And women have been used and constricted by the hierarchy itself in order to heighten their function as agents of shame. But that's a story for another time. Anyway, I'll leave off with a question for the interested viewer to ponder. How have we, as a society, managed to justify blaming the behavior of apexuals, now and historically, on the male bodied they've sacrificed? An apexual does not share any identity with the male body. As such, the positive or negative actions of any one apexual cannot reasonably be blamed or credited on the male-bodied as a group. It makes as much sense as blaming the behavior of cisexual men on male-to-female transgender women because they both have or had penises. With that, this is Typhon Blue signing off.